Yeah, great to be on this retreat, Changemakers and Pioneers. Yeah, as was mentioned last night, that explicit emphasis on taking the Dharma out, on transforming other people's lives. So great to be part of this retreat and this atmosphere. Yeah, so I'm going to unpack Cherish the Doctrine. This first part of Dada Rinpoche's motto that he gave the school. And just giving myself a little bit of context of Dada Rinpoche's and Sangharakshita's relationship, I was just really struck by this sense of what great friends they were. So Dada Rinpoche says that he never had a disciple like Sangharakshita. And the teaching that was communicated between Dada Rinpoche and Sangharakshita was through friendship. So I feel like we, within this one friendship, all these thousands of friendships have formed as Triratna has grown and grown throughout the years. So in preparing for this talk, I've listened to a few lectures. I dived into my Padmaloka lineage. So Sangharakshita gave a talk on this motto to mark an anniversary of Rinpoche's death. And there's been talks from Padmavajra and Padmasagara that I've listened to as well. So loads of material out there if you want to further dive into these mottos, these teachings. Okay, so Cherish the Doctrine. So I'll have a little look at the words first to get a sense of the general territory. So cherishing, so the definition of cherish, to love, to protect, to care for someone or something that's important to you. And when you cherish something, you really love it, you really value it, you hold it dear, it's really precious to you. So I'm thinking about all the things in my life that I cherish. I want to do this kind of mudra. It's like a holding, a loving, a nurturing. Okay, and then doctrine. So what do we mean by doctrine? So by doctrine we mean the Dharma. And the Dharma here you can think of as having two principal meanings. So the first one, the Dharma is law, truth, reality, and the second one, the Dharma, is a principle that's communicated. Okay, so the Dharma is law, principle, truth. So this meaning is pointing to the fact, right back to the Buddha, where the Buddha woke up and realized this inexpressible, completely mysterious, deep and profound truth. The implications of which were so deep that it took him outside the sphere of what we call human. So the realm of something else entirely, the ultimate expression of wisdom and compassion. So this is like the starting point of Buddhism. It's kind of Buddhism before Buddhism, archaic Buddhism, that existed before any teachings, before any lists. It's this profound and ultimate realization. So the Buddha said after his enlightenment, this Dharma is deep, profound, not to be understood by mere reasoning. And it's important, I think, as we continue our Buddhist practice, to contemplate the origin of the Dharma, which is this wordless, mysterious, ultimate, all the words don't do it justice, thing, reality. So that's the first meaning of Dharma, so law, principle, truth. And then the second connotation is the Dharma as the teachings of the Buddha. So the Buddha walked, he met people, he communicated, and he tried explaining this experience in like this way or that way. And over a period of time, this wordless mystery became crystallized. It became crystallized into maybe a few words, some ideas, some images, some symbols, some stories, some similes. all things that people were familiar with. And you can get the sense that the Buddha was trying to take things that people were familiar with and recreate something that pointed to something new. So a bit like taking all the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle and trying to work out how to fit them together to create a new image that no one had ever seen before. An image that would bring something brand new, bring a total transformation. So we've got this Dharma as law, principle, truth, and then this Dharma as teaching. And the relationship between the two is really important. So when we talk about the Dharma, we're talking about something that throughout history has been passed down through for our benefit. Its purpose is to help us realize what the Buddha realized before us. So we've got these images of like it's a raft taking us to a further shore, a finger pointing to the moon. So in this sense that the Dharma's, it's a living thing, it's in flow, it's in movement, it's something outside time, meeting something within time, a people, a place, a context. And you could think about the relationship between these two aspects of the Dharma as the relationship between inspiration and crystallization. So the first one is the inspired seeing, the inspired vision. And then the second, the teaching, is like this essenceless thing being crystallized into a particular form that helps people see through that crystal into the light. And then over time, this crystallized form is packed out a little bit more. It's formulated into lots of lists and teachings and all the vast literature. So we've got the wordless going into the words and then going into a whole tradition of practice. Inspiration, crystallization, and then being formed, formalization. So why cherish the doctrine, and which one of these are we cherishing? So the Dharma as a vision, as an inspired presence, doesn't, as the truth as reality, it doesn't need to be cherished. We can only take refuge in that, be bathed in it, revere it, worship it. It's the second sense of the Dharma that this motto is referring to, in the sense of cherishing the Dharma, this crystallization in the sense of its communication, its teaching. So to protect, to nurture, to love the Dharma as a living communication between practitioners, between each other, and to share that. So why do we need to cherish? Why do we need to cherish the Dharma? So maybe lots of different answers to this. But one perspective you could take is that because an effective living Dharma that we can come into contact with, that can transform us, that will enable wisdom and compassion, freedom from craving, it's not an inevitable, it's not a given. So we've got these words in the puja, in the entreaty and supplication section, that say, I entreat the Buddhas in all the quarters. May they make shine the lamp of the Dharma for those wandering in the suffering of delusion. So to me that always suggests that it might not always shine. We could just be actually wandering around in the suffering of delusion with no lamp of Dharma shining. And we're incredibly lucky to have come into contact with a Sangha and be in a position to respond. So the Buddha taught this parable of a turtle and the yolk, which I always thought was an egg yolk, but I think it's a yolk that it's like a little hoop that goes around an ox, but I feel like the egg yolk still kind of works as the metaphor. So a blind turtle services once every 100 years in a vast sea. And the Buddha asked his audience how rare it would be for the turtle to fit its neck through a yolk, egg or ox. And the monks agree it would be very rare. And the Buddha says, Yes, it would be, wouldn't it? So this compares to the rarity of being born as a human being and encountering the Dharma taught by the Buddha. So if that sense of rebirth, thousands and thousands of past lives and timeless existence, if that sort of inspires you, I think through this metaphor we can get a sense of just how rare it is to come into contact with the living Dharma and be able to practice it with other people. So it's the Dharma in this sense, the teaching, the communication that we're being asked to cherish. So how do we cherish the doctrine? Sangharakshita offers us 3 ways that we can do this: by studying, by practicing, and by sharing it, by propagating it. And these 3 aspects of cherishing the Dharma are a lifetime's work. I feel like cherish is a really good word because it doesn't imply that you ever get to the end of it. You can carry on cherishing. There's no kind of, I'm cherished, I'm finished, I'm moving on. It's a continual cherishing. So I'm going to briefly have a look at these 3 ways to cherish the Dharma, cherish the doctrine. So studying, understanding, practicing, and sharing. Okay, so the first one, studying, understanding it. So we all come to the Dharma with pre-existing views and beliefs. So views are the way in which we organise and interpret our experience, our lives. So we have these huge, massive impressions, all this stuff going on, all this history, all this world around us, all these different people. And in order to kind of get out of bed and brush our teeth, we need to have some kind of manageable order of a way to put this whole thing in context, our life, our existence in context. And as humans, we have the capacity to stand back from the experience and think about how all the different elements relate to each other, and how we relate to them. So our place in the world and how the world affects us. And the patterns that we form through this kind of thinking and trying to piecing things together, you could say, are our views, our beliefs. So we may know what these are, but more likely we'll have no clue what kind of views and opinions our sneaky subconscious has been forming over our life, our history. More often than not, there are a load of different, conflicting, unthought out attitudes and assumptions that are completely random and most of the time unknown, but really drive us. They really determine how we act in the world, what our responses are to things. So we all come to the Dharma, we all come to Buddhism with certain assumptions about life and what it's about. I'm permanent, I'm not going to die, I'm defined by my achievements, I'm defined by my failures, I'm inherently inferior to others, I'm inherently better than others. If I get what I want, I'll be happy. Death is the end of existence. Death isn't the end of existence. All these other people are to blame for my suffering. My suffering is all my fault. Everything happens for a reason. Everything's terrible. Everything's great. I'm a lone warrior. I'm uniquely flawed. I'm completely vulnerable. I am uniquely gifted. Just to name a few that I was thinking about this morning. It's and just to say, it's kind of it's okay. It's okay. That we're chaotic, confused, conflicted. It's part of the deal. It's part of the deal of being human. And over the time, as we get to know the Dharma, as we practice ethics, meditation, dip our toes into wisdom, it starts to kind of sift these underlying views, and they start to come to the surface. And once they're more in the conscious realm and more of us are integrated, they can begin to be transformed. If their right views begin to be strengthened, if the wrong views begin to let go. When I was thinking about this, I was remembering the first ever order retreat I went on. And it was for the young order, and it was a seminar led by Subhuti, just a weekend seminar. And Subhuti's a really senior order member, done a lot of good. But I always remember him looking out, and he said, "You need to learn how to think, because you don't know how to think. And if you don't know how to think, you can't protect the Dharma, because you can't spot wrong views." And I remember thinking, oh, I don't know how to think. I don't think he was speaking directly to me, but it really, it really landed. I just thought, wow, I've done all these years of practice, and I am spectacularly confused. So in my own small way, since then, and probably throughout my lives, I'm making small steps to clarify my thinking. So I found someone who I thought could think, and then I asked them to teach me. So if that interests you, I'd really recommend it. You go on a real journey, and the sort of headlines of my journey so far is you give up on certainty and you value clarity. So you can be clear about what you're uncertain about, but you can be certain about almost nothing. So to understand the Dharma, to get an appreciation of it, it's really good to start at the beginning, foundational. It's really easy to miss out the basics. One basic thing that's really easy to forget about is the Buddha. Have an understanding of what the Buddha said. So obviously you don't need to be familiar with the whole of the Buddhist literature, but it is important to have a knowledge of a few key texts. So some common key texts within Triratna I think are really helpful. Dhammapada, Kalyana Metta Sutta, and the Pariyesana Sutta, so the Noble Eightfold, the Noble Quest that includes the Buddha's going forth. So these key texts can help form a really good foundation. Without knowledge of something of what the Buddha said, it's very easy to be a bit lost in the maze. And of course, this is an ever-deepening process. At the beginning of my Dharma life, of my practice, I listened to loads of talks. I went to loads of events, went on loads of retreats, read loads, talked to people loads, and I had a bit of a project of getting all the lists in the Dharma and trying to fit them all together. So I transformed one of my walls into like a huge kind of mad spider diagram of how does all this work? How does it all fit together? And I think that can be really, really valuable. What's the territory? What is the actual structure of the Dharma? What are the principles? And I remember one of my friends, Savannah Garber, coming into my bedroom and seeing this creation in progress. It was a few years in the making. And he just went, good. Learn it and then burn it. And I thought, yeah, good, yeah. Because once you've read, studied, learned about something, it's really tempting to think it's done, it's fixed, it's in place, got that nailed. But the gold is the constant reflection, the turning over and over, the deepening of that. And for me, that's always been from words to images to symbols. Really worthwhile. If you've got that temperament, don't feel ashamed about being completely obsessed with the Dharma and trying to work it all out, even though at some point it'll all collapse and turn to flames. It's all part of the process. And I'll just mention another important text for me in trying to understand, to study the Dharma. And that's a paper called Revering and Relying on the Dharma. And it covers some really essential topics in relation to Triratna's position on what the Buddha taught. And it was when I was reading this that I started to realize there was a deep framework within all these teachings that I could relate to. So often there can be the literature's so vast, and Triratna is so kind of sprawling in its content. It can feel just a bit like unconnected dots, but there is a beautiful underlying matrix within. It just needs kind of finding and feeling out. And a really essential part of that is really appreciating the lineage that the Dharma's come down to us in. So appreciating our friends, our teachers, our Kalyana Mitras. I've found it incredibly invaluable to sit at the feet of my spiritual elders. That is really where I have understood. I've learned the Dharma. And of course, Sangharakshita has guided us into the Dharma, opened up loads and loads of different treasures. And so really cherishing that living stream of his communication and the form that's come down to us. In one way or another, we're all part of this lineage, this Buddhist movement, that's this interconnected web of connections. So I'd really encourage you to cherish the Dharma as communicated by Triratna. And again, coming back to the inspiration, crystallization and formulation. So Sangharakshita provided that inspiration of coming back from India, seeing that a new Buddhist movement needed to be found. And over time, those teachings have been crystallized and formulated in a way that lots of people can engage with them. I think a particular important understanding in the crystallization of Triratna is the system of Dharma life. So integration, positive emotion, spiritual death, spiritual rebirth and receptivity. So these 5 great elements, they hold and they can fit all our meditation practices, all our life experience, all different psychological models, insight, ethics, meditation, wisdom. Having these in the backs of our mind, I feel like we can help ourselves and other people navigate through what it really means to practice a Dharma life and all the sort of ups and downs. Okay, so that's knowing, understanding the Dharma. We also cherish it by practicing it. And there's so many different ways to practice the Dharma. In essence, it's going for refuge more and more deeply, trying to continually deepen our refuge in the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. And it takes all these different forms, observing the precepts, spiritual friendship, right livelihood, meditation, puja, living in community, going on solitary, whatever it takes, whatever it is to make it real in your experience. I feel as a movement, we're really good at that, making the Dharma real in our experience, actually practicing it. And it's such a huge topic to think about, practicing the Dharma. I was trying to think, what are my reflections on practicing the Dharma in my kind of short time? And what came to mind is a slogan that was said by Satyaraja on a meditation retreat. And he was talking about how we make effort in meditation is the fundamental kind of building block to whether we're successful or not. So the teaching goes, the most important aspect of whether or not you're successful in meditation, so you can enter into dhyana and higher states of consciousness, is to bring a steady stream of balanced effort that is both calm and energized, both active and receptive. And I think at the moment that I just want to broaden that out to include the whole of the Buddhist practice and my reflections on practicing the Dharma. The most important aspect of whether you are successful in practice or not, so that we can live in higher states of consciousness, is to bring to our life a steady stream of balanced effort that is both calm and energized, both active and receptive. Because practicing the Dharma is a long game. You need to think long term, lifetime, long term. And being too tight, too intense, it can all get a bit brittle and shatter. Being too loose, not enough energy, it can all get a bit vague and sloppy. But looking for something that's both calm and energized, active and receptive. A steady stream of practice throughout the days, weeks, months, years. I think this is the foundational attitude of practice that survives the kind of ups and downs, the inspiration and the desperation, the ideal and the real. It's this underlying current that kind of sees us through the through our practice, through our lives. Okay. And then finally, I just want to share some reflections on the final way to cherish, sharing the Dharma. And I want to particularly think about sharing the Dharma as a team. Because this is really important for all of us on this retreat. So we're here at Adhisthana on this Changemakers retreat, or on the Pioneers retreat, and we're cultivating, we're trying to practice how we can share the Dharma most effectively. So first of all, the word share, I feel like I want to use that quite consciously as opposed to the word teach. I think it's very can be, what's the nice political way of saying this, not sure. It can be, you can get into difficulties if you've got an idea that you can teach the Dharma, or you want to teach the Dharma. So I think sharing captures more of the spirit. I really like this phrase, the Dharma is caught, not taught. So it's my experience that it's these set of undefinable combination of things that need to happen for the Dharma to be caught. For someone to start going for refuge, for you to deepen your going for refuge. It really isn't about giving a perfect teaching, standing up front, or giving the perfect answer to the question that's being asked, which is quite reassuring in a way, isn't it? It's not perfection of teaching, it's subtlety of atmosphere. It's an atmosphere that's created, an atmosphere of invitation. We're practicing, I'm practicing, join us in that practice. There's loads of ways to share the Dharma, obviously. Events, courses, retreats, talks, groups, one-on-one. But I think when thinking about all these different types, I found it helpful to have a bit of a crystallized structure in mind. So that's what you need to get right are the practicalities, the content, and the atmosphere. So practicalities, stuff like who's coming, what are their names, what time do we start, Do they need feeding? Has everyone got a cup of tea? Do people feel welcomed? So all like the worldly things that help people basically feel in a happy, healthy human state. Really not to be underestimated. It's very difficult to be inspired by the Dharma if you're feeling insecure, anxious, not taken in. So getting the practicalities right. And then the content. So what will be the Dharma foundation? What will we be reflecting on? What will we be meditating on? And then the atmosphere. So this is where the inspiration shines through, this intangible sense of something being caught. So I find this really helpful when thinking of situations, activities, places, contexts where we're trying to share the Dharma. What are the practicalities? What's the content? And what's the atmosphere going to be? So healthy, happy human being, we need some good crystallized content, and we need an atmosphere that will enable inspiration. Because in the end, atmosphere is the most important thing. This catching of the Dharma is the most important thing. But it's really hard to generate that atmosphere if you don't have the practicalities and content to build on. So ideally, we're trying to communicate, we're trying to share the Dharma through our own inspiration, through the threads of our own inspiration. So often we feel like, to me, we have to work backwards. What inspiration do I want to share? What kind of atmosphere does that need? What kind of content will facilitate this? What kind of practicalities do we need in place? So in terms of the atmosphere, again, this undefined, I've got this, really hard to put into words. So I've only got images, lightning rods, depth charges, nice sweet smelling perfumes. So this intangible, unseen thing. So we've got this inspiration, we want to share it. What content will facilitate this? So I'm just going to throw out a few questions that might be helpful. So what form will the content take? A really important one, is it the Dharma? Or is it actually something else? So make sure that you're clear. Is your content dharmic, or is something else snuck in from the side? I mean, it's a really difficult one to touch on a talk, so I'm not going to do that. But is the content dharmic? Really important question before you start. How does it relate to the living lineage that I'm part of? Does it come from the Buddha, from Bhante? Where are these teachings coming from? Does it align with the lineage that moves up throughout time into timeless space? What confusions could arise? What wrong views are likely? Is it clear enough? What will help people reflect? What are some questions that are just the right shape to get through deep into people's consciousness? What will people take away? What images are helpful? What stories are helpful? What is it helpful for me to be like? And then what practicalities will facilitate this? What kind of room, what kind of space, inside, outside, how long? Do we eat first? Do we meditate first? What's the structure? What type of tea? All these different kind of stuff. So I've found Atmosphere, content, practicalities are a continual source of clarity amongst the confusion of how to communicate this indefinable inspiration to others and bring them into a life of practice. But there's also another important question to be asked is, what does the group that you're with need? So if you're facilitating a group, what does it need? What kind of inspiration does it need? What would be beneficial content? There was a period of time in the Young Buddhists in Sheffield where we had a particular slant, let's say, towards, I've called it heady wisdom magic. So the people coming, which weren't very many, were heady wisdom magic people. And unconsciously I felt, I think what this group needs is a regular ethical and meditation practice. I think that's what will create a stability of this group to continue to move forward. So all the different events, I'd be chipping in with my ethics, with my karma. And I remember a friend of mine, he's in the order now, Shubha Singha, he just said, "God, when I first came, I found you so frustrating." I was just like, God, you were so boring. Just talking about ethics the whole time. I felt like you were anti-magic. And, people can have their opinions. I'm definitely not anti-magic, but I'd prefer a long-running, deep practice based in a group based in ethics than a short flash-in-the-pan, wild, sexy magic ideas that disintegrates and needs to keep being reformed with different places and with different people. I think stability is really important, and often stability, you need to find a way to help people find that inspiring, because it is inspiring. Okay. And then the last little bit I wanted to say in terms of sharing the Dharma was about sharing it as a team. So this really strong myth of sharing the Dharma collectively with other people. A team gives the greatest chance for this intangible atmosphere to be created where the Dharma is caught. When you join together as a team, something else arises that is greater than the individuals together. A really strong thread of Sangha's teaching, which I really like, is insight is most likely to arise within a group of individuals working together for something greater than themselves. And we've got a really beautiful symbol for this, the symbol of Avalokiteshvara. So this 1,000-armed, 11-headed bodhisattva, each person being a hand of Avalokiteshvara with a specific offer, a specific gift, a specific talent, joined together by the central two hands holding the bodhicitta, that wish for the enlightenment, the freedom of suffering of all living beings. It's so powerful to share a life of practice together as a team. And for us on the, for the Changemakers, I think particularly, I don't particularly think that youth is a virtue, apart from the fact that hopefully it gives you time in your life. So we've got time to practice together for the rest of our lives. So we've got decades together. And I feel like teams that have worked together and built communities and practiced together over decades are the thing that makes the difference in the Dharma being communicated to the world. Yeah, so powerful to share a life of practice together. So have that culture, if possible, within your team. What works for you in the morning? How do you prepare for talks? How do you engage with newcomer questions? How do you work with your mind? What's on your personal shrine? How shall we create a shrine together? Let's go on retreat together. Let's live together. Let's work together. Let's welcome new people into the Sangha together. So a culture of really valuing breadth and depth. So going out towards new people as well as going deeper with friendships that you already have. I just don't think it can be any other way than both of those things pulling against each other to create something on another level, to take a whole group of people to another level. Don't be seduced into thinking that you've got your crew and you can go deep and ignore everyone else. And also don't fall into the trap of it's got to be more and more and more people spread more and more thin. You need that healthy tension. And having a clear purpose as a team is really helpful. So as a team, collectively reflecting on why you're sharing the Dharma and having a shared myth and mission and keep revisiting it. The answer can be deeper than because it's a good thing to do. It needs to be deeper than that. I've really appreciated in the teams that I've been in, there's been a really strong myth of the Bodhisattva ideal and a mission to build a Sangha, build a community of practicing Buddhists. And to have a shared knowledge and a shared understanding about how that's specifically practiced. So almost having a core text that allows a team to continually revisit its vision and its values. So do reflect on why you're together as a team. Why are you creating a young Buddhist community within your Sangha? Why are you going out and pioneering and taking the Dharma out in locations where it hasn't been before? And quite a fun way to do that is to think about why you're not doing it. So hopefully you're not doing it for money, because the centre said we're running short of money. We need some paid young people classes to happen. You're not doing it because you want a platform for your ego. You're not doing it because you're really into education and you just love teaching in itself. It's worth considering what type of team you're trying to create. And it's very easy to ask someone to join a team and very hard to ask them to leave. So think carefully about your teams and the vision and the values and the invitations. I don't think that having a role profile is a good idea. I think that anyone with any type of skills, if their practice is strong enough and they're going for refuges deep enough, has an incredibly important place in teams. So they don't need to be great up front, don't need to be really extroverted, don't need to be really funny or particularly like magnetic. So everyone has an equal importance in creating an atmosphere. So back to this image of Avalokiteshvara. And often the quieter people within teams that I've been part of that don't necessarily do anything, want to do anything up front, they're what bring the deeper, subtler communication that makes a difference to an atmosphere. If at all helpful, forget everything you think about what it might look like to share the Dharma and what type of person you might need to be. Your skills and talents and qualities will be enough and will find a place within a context. And the final thing I say is that it's a journey to share the Dharma. It's a process. It takes practice. Be kind to yourself. Perfection is a ridiculous view. You don't have to wait until you think it's gonna be good enough or it's gonna be perfect. Just give it a go. It's practicing over and over again that really makes the difference. And really important to have a context to reflect on how things have gone, how events have gone, have little team debriefs, what went well, what didn't go so well, what would we do different next time. So really creating that encouragement, that understanding, that confidence giving for ourselves and other people, so we can be in the best possible position to share the Dharma in its truest sense, and to give people that little taste of that inspiration, that wordless thing that comes through. Thank you.